the silent ones of Redwood Creek. I never thought I'd be the type to find peace in isolation, but after losing my father to a sudden heart attack, I desperately needed an escape from the city. I took 2 weeks off work and drove out to Redwood Creek, a remote area known for its sprawling, dense forest and miles of unmarked trails. I rented a cabin on the outskirts of the woods, accessible only by a winding dirt road that seemed to stretch for miles. The cabin itself was small but cozy, with a wood-burning stove and a creaky wooden deck that overlooked the thick forest. The nearest neighbor was about 3 miles away, and I hadn't seen a soul since arriving. That first night, I made myself a simple dinner, sat out on the deck with a mug of coffee, and just listened to the forest breathing around me. It was tranquil, almost too quiet, but I needed the solitude. Around midnight, I woke to the sound of faint tapping on the windows. At first, I thought it was just branches scraping against the glass, but the rhythmic pattern was too deliberate. I grabbed my flashlight and cautiously peered through the curtains, but the forest was as dark as ink. I couldn't see anyone. I tried to shake it off, but my instincts wouldn't let me sleep for the rest of the night. The next day, I decided to hike down to the creek to clear my head. It was about a mile from the cabin, and the forest seemed almost too dense, like it was trying to swallow the path. About halfway there, I found something that made me stop in my tracks, a wooden carving of a human figure, about a foot tall, tied with twine to a branch. The figure's head was turned backwards, and its limbs were twisted unnaturally. I took a few steps closer, noticing that the carving looked worn, like it had been there for years. As I reached out to touch it, I heard a low whistle from deeper in the woods, almost melodic but eerie. I froze, scanning the trees for any sign of movement. The sound stopped abruptly, and I forced myself to move on, convincing myself it was just the wind or an animal. That night I locked all the doors and windows, but sleep didn't come easy. Around 3 a.m., I heard the tapping again, more insistent this time. I tiptoed to the window and lifted the edge of the curtain. In the faint moonlight, I saw something move, just a shadow slipping between the trees. My heart raced as I realized it wasn't just one shadow. There were several. I couldn't make out their shapes, but they were human-sized, hunched over and moving in slow, deliberate patterns, almost as if they were performing a ritual. I didn't sleep at all after that. The next morning, I ventured outside, half hoping I had just been dreaming. But on the dirt around the cabin, I found dozens of tracks, bare human feet, some large, some small. They circled the cabin and led into the woods. A shiver ran through me when I noticed that the tracks didn't lead to the cabin. They seemed to originate from it. It was as if the silent visitors had come from inside the cabin and returned to the forest. I checked every corner, every crevice, but nothing was out of place. My mind raced with thoughts. Maybe I was being paranoid, or maybe someone was playing a sick joke on me. That evening, I decided to stay awake with my rifle loaded. I sat by the window, waiting for the shadows to return. At around midnight, the forest went deathly quiet. No crickets, no owls, just an unnatural stillness. Then I heard it. A slow, rhythmic chant coming from the woods, too far away to make out the words. I crept out onto the deck, scanning the tree line with my flashlight. Suddenly, I caught a glimpse of them, 6 or 7 figures wrapped in dark shrouds, standing motionless at the edge of the clearing. One of them raised a long, thin object, a staff or a branch, and pointed it toward the cabin. The chanting grew louder, almost frantic, before suddenly stopping altogether. One by one, the figures slipped back into the forest without a sound. Just as I thought they had gone, I heard something behind me, a creak from the floorboards. I spun around, heart pounding, and saw someone standing in the doorway, pale, covered in dirt, with hollow, sunken eyes. The figure stepped forward, and I realized it wasn't human. Not entirely. Its face looked almost stretched, and its limbs were too long, almost insect-like. I raised my rifle, but it didn't react, just stared with those empty eyes. Then, without a sound, it turned and walked back outside, disappearing into the woods. I didn't sleep at all that night. At dawn, I packed my things in a hurry, intent on leaving that cursed place. As I loaded my truck, I noticed something on the porch, a circle of small wooden carvings, like the one I had seen earlier. They were arranged in a perfect circle, facing inward. I kicked them aside and sped down the dirt road, heart racing. On the way back, I passed the cabin that was supposedly my nearest neighbor's, but it looked abandoned, windows broken, weeds growing through the porch floorboards. I thought about stopping, but the memory of those chanting figures kept me moving. Back in town, I asked the gas station clerk about the cabins at Redwood Creek. He gave me a strange look when I mentioned the location. "Those cabins have been empty for years," he said. "Nobody's rented them since the fire. Burned down half the forest. Nobody goes up there anymore." I tried to argue, but he just shook his head. I drove home in silence, the image of those carvings still vivid in my mind. I didn't know what to think, whether I had stumbled into some ancient ritual site or if the place itself was cursed. I couldn't shake the feeling that those figures were still watching, still waiting for me to return. I never went back, and I've since moved to a bustling city far from any forest. Sometimes, though, when I'm alone at night, I hear that slow, melodic whistle just outside my window, and I can't help but wonder if they followed me back. The thing that follows the light. I work as a forest ranger in a remote part of the Appalachian Mountains. It's a quiet job most of the time, checking trails, assisting lost hikers, and making sure that no one's setting illegal campfires. I've been stationed at the same lookout tower for almost 5 years now, and while I've had my fair share of odd encounters, nothing compares to what happened last fall. It was mid-October, the leaves in full bloom of gold and crimson, and the nights turning brisk. I had just settled into the tower after my evening rounds when I received a distress signal on the radio. A man's voice crackled through, barely audible over static. "Help. Stuck. Need help. Lights." I grabbed the radio and asked for his location, but there was no response. I tried again, switching frequencies to see if he'd moved to another channel, but all I got was that same faint whisper about the lights. Frustrated, I logged the call and planned to head out at first light. At around midnight, just as I was drifting off, I heard it again, this time louder. "Help! Follow the light." The way he said it, like a prayer or a chant, sent chills down my spine. I looked out from the tower and noticed something odd, a single light flickering deep within the forest. It was too far from any trail and far too stationary to be a hiker. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to check it out. I grabbed my flashlight, radio, and a flare gun, just in case. I hiked down the steep, leaf-strewn path toward the light, which seemed to be moving deeper into the forest. The air was thick with the scent of pine and decaying leaves, and every few minutes, I thought I heard twigs snapping in the distance. As I moved closer, I saw the light more clearly, a single flickering lantern swaying from a branch. When I finally reached it, I noticed something even more unsettling. A pair of muddy boots lying beneath the lantern, pointing in opposite directions as if someone had been dragged away. I shone my flashlight around, but the forest remained eerily silent. I radioed the station, but the line was dead, nothing but static. I tried using my phone, but no signal. Just as I was about to turn back, I heard the voice again, much clearer this time. "Follow the light." Just as I spun around, I saw another light in the distance, further into the forest, just beyond the creek. Against my better judgment, I followed it, my footsteps crunching over the cold, damp ground. When I reached the creek, I saw the light swaying gently from another tree, just like the first one. This time, the ground beneath it was different. Carved into the mud were symbols, circles interlinked with triangles, forming a strange pattern. I took a photo with my phone, still hopeful that I might find service later. Suddenly, I heard a new sound, the faint melody of an old folk song drifting through the trees. The tune was familiar but warped, like a record playing too slowly. As I moved closer to the lantern, I noticed something hanging from it. A small, handmade doll woven from twigs and grass. Its head was wrapped in what looked like animal hide. The song grew louder, and I felt a presence behind me. I whipped around, and there it was, a hunched figure, standing just on the edge of my flashlight's reach. I couldn't make out any features, just a silhouette with elongated limbs, its head cocked unnaturally to one side. It didn't move, didn't breathe, just stood there, swaying slightly in rhythm with the lantern. I aimed the flashlight directly at it, and it vanished. I stepped back, tripping over a root, and scrambled to my feet, heart pounding. I wanted to run, but some twisted sense of duty kept me rooted to the spot. Then the voice came again, but this time it was a woman's, soft, almost soothing. "Follow the light." I finally tore myself away and sprinted back toward the tower. The forest seemed darker, thicker than before, branches clawing at my clothes as I pushed through. I didn't dare look back, but I could hear footsteps, heavy and deliberate, matching my pace. I stumbled through the underbrush, and in my panic, I fired the flare gun. The bright, crimson light shot into the sky, casting eerie shadows across the forest floor. In that brief illumination, I saw them, figures, dozens of them, all around me, standing still, their heads cocked at unnatural angles. Then darkness returned, and I couldn't hear my own breathing over the blood pounding in my ears. I reached the tower and locked myself inside, pressing my back against the door as if that could somehow keep them out. From the window I saw them, dozens of lanterns now, moving in perfect unison through the trees. I tried the radio again, and miraculously, it crackled to life. "Are you there? This is Ranger 12, do you copy?" Yes, I'm here. There's something in the woods, something following the lights." There was a pause. "Stay where you are. We're sending a unit. Don't follow the lights." I wanted to scream that I already had, that it was too late. The figures gathered at the base of the tower, their heads all turned upward, watching me through the windows. I kept the lights off and remained silent, hoping they'd lose interest. Dawn broke slowly, and with it, the figures dissolved into the forest like smoke on the wind. The ground below was empty, no tracks, no lanterns, just the same quiet forest as always. The Rangers arrived, but they didn't find anything. No lanterns, no symbols, no signs of anyone but me. I told them everything, but they exchanged worried glances as if I had lost my mind. One of them stayed with me at the tower that night, just in case, but nothing happened. Before leaving, he handed me a file, an old report from the 1970s. It detailed a case eerily similar to mine, a ranger who vanished after reporting strange lights and chanting in the woods. His cabin was found abandoned, door wide open, and the ground around it littered with wooden dolls. I didn't sleep that night. I kept watch over the forest, my rifle loaded and ready. Around midnight, I thought I heard that melody again, just a faint echo carried by the wind. I refused to look out the window, convinced that if I did, I would see those lanterns again, swaying gently in the night air. I put in my resignation the next morning, packed my things, and left the mountains for good. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I still see them. Those lanterns moving through the forest, the rhythmic sway, and the figures watching from the shadows. And late at night, when the wind is just right, I can almost hear the voice again, telling me to follow the light.